You ever sit in an office and just feel like the air is, well, a little stale, a little recycled? We spend so much of our time inside, right? But what if our buildings could do more than just sit there? What if they could actually breathe? So, what you're looking at right here isn't just some fancy interior design, it's so much more than that. This is a living, breathing system. We're talking about taking a plain old static wall and turning it into a dynamic, active purifier for the air all around us. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how this amazing technology works.
All right, here's a quick look at what we're covering. We'll start with the big idea of a breathing building. Then we'll get into the three main ways these things are built. After that, we dive into the science of clean air, cover all the extra benefits, and trust me, there are a lot. And finally, look at how we can design these into our future. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, the breathing building. Let's meet the star of the show, the green facade.
So what exactly is a green facade? You've probably heard other names for it, like a living wall or a vertical garden. And at its core, it's a wall covered with plants. But, and this is the important part, it's not just for decoration. It's a fully engineered system designed to be a natural air filter for an entire building. The real secret sauce here is a process called biofiltration. Honestly, the best way to picture it is to think of these green walls as the lungs of the building. They're literally inhaling pollutants and exhaling cleaner, fresher air. It's an incredibly powerful idea, and it all starts with how they're put together. So how do we actually build these lungs into our architecture? Well, it turns out not all living walls are created equal. Architects really have three main options to choose from. First up, we've got the most traditional method, and it's called direct greening. You've definitely seen this before. Just picture that classic ivy crawling up the side of an old university building. That's it. Self-climbing plants are rooted in the ground, and they use the wall itself for support. It's simple, it's beautiful, but it also gives architects the least amount of control over the design. Next, let's look at a more structured approach, indirect greening. Okay, now this is a pretty big leap forward. Instead of growing right on the wall, the plants climb up a separate structure, like a steel trellis or a mesh of cables. And here's the key. This creates an intentional air gap between the plants and the building. That little gap is huge. It protects the wall's surface and adds a fantastic layer of natural insulation. And that brings us to the third and most advanced option, living wall systems. Yeah, check this out. This is a whole different ballgame. The plants aren't climbing from the ground at all. Instead, they're pre-grown in these special modules or panels that get fixed right onto the building. This means you get an instant, lush green wall from day one. It lets architects create really complex, beautiful patterns and usually includes a built-in, high-tech irrigation system. All right, so we get how they're built now, but how exactly do they give us that breath of fresh air? Let's dive into the science. You know, it's kind of wild, but the air inside our homes and offices is often way more polluted than the air outside. It's full of these nasty invisible chemicals called VOCs that come from paint, furniture, you name it. Not to mention dust, particulate matter, even things like carbon monoxide and formaldehyde. Well, green facades are absolute rock stars at targeting and pulling these things right out of the air. So how do they do it? Well, it's kind of like a 1-2 punch. First, the plants act as a simple physical barrier. All those leaves literally trap dust and particles, filtering them out. But the real magic is the biological part. It's a process called phytoremediation, where the plants and the tiny microbes living in their roots actually absorb and eat these harmful airborne pollutants, breaking them down into stuff that's totally harmless. And you might be thinking, okay, but how well does this really work? The research is pretty stunning. For something like formaldehyde, which is super common in building materials, green facades have been shown to remove up to 90% of it from the air. That is a massive difference in the quality of air you're breathing all day long. But here's the thing. Cleaning our air is really just scratching the surface. These living walls come with a whole bunch of other benefits that might actually surprise you. One of the absolute biggest is energy efficiency. That green layer, and especially that air gap we talked about in the indirect systems, it acts like a natural insulating blanket for the building. It's like a cooling shield in the summer and a warm coat in the winter. And what does that mean? It means lower energy bills and a smaller carbon footprint. It's a win-win. And the list just keeps on going. The plants help dampen outside noise, which makes for a quieter indoor space.
They create new habitats for birds and insects, boosting a city's biodiversity. On a city-wide scale, they help fight the urban heat island effect, which literally cools down our cities. And of course, study after study shows that just being around plants boosts our mood, our health, and even our productivity.
And let's be honest, we can't forget how incredible they look. They can completely transform a boring concrete box into a living, breathing work of art. There's this idea called biophilia, our innate human need to connect with nature, and these walls tap right into that, which is just great for our mental health.
Okay, so these systems are amazing. The benefits are clear, but how do architects and designers actually bring them to life in our buildings? That's all about smart integration.
One of the first big decisions is whether to go with a passive or an active system. Passive systems are simpler. They just rely on natural airflow. But active systems? They're a total game changer. They use fans to actively pull air through the root system of the plants, which supercharges the purification process. And the best part? They can be plugged right into the building's HVAC system to pump that super clean air everywhere. And of course, you can't just stick any plant in there and call it a day. The plant selection is absolutely critical. Designers have to pick species that are champs at removing certain pollutants. They have to think about maintenance, water, and most importantly, picking plants that will actually thrive in that specific building's climate, which also helps perfectly regulate the humidity.
So when you put it all together, the clever architectural systems, the powerful science, and the massive range of benefits, from saving money on energy to just making us feel better, you realize this is a truly revolutionary technology. As we try to build healthier, more sustainable cities, you really have to wonder, could these living, breathing walls be the future for every single building?